What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Mets Off Day Live. I'm your host, Chelsea Sherrod, and joining us today is SNY senior editorial producer Danny Abriano and Newsday's Laura Albanese. We're going to talk all things Mets over the next half hour, and we'll take some fan questions live as they come in. But first, welcome to the show, Danny and Laura.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for being here. We're going to try to keep this as positive as possible, especially given the way the last couple of weeks have gone for the Mets. Before we get into the last 12 games, let's talk about the last off day. Here's how some of the Mets spent it. Francisco Lindor hung out with Starling Marte on a flight home. They were snuggle buddies on the flight. Mark Canha went to Via Carota in the West Village for a citrus salad. Tomas Nido, Luis Guillorme, and Pete Alonso went to Devils-Rangers Game 4. Danny, starting with you, which one would you have joined?
I probably would have gone with Mark Canha. I'm a sucker for West Village restaurants. Minetta Tavern being my favorite. So I probably would have gone there. Would have been tempted to go to the game, Rangers Devils, try to inject some life to the blue shirts before they went down. But West Village with Mark Canha.
Okay. Laura?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like, if there's food involved, that's where I'm going. And I love Via Carota. They've got the pappardelle with, like, wild boar ragu, and it's delicious. So
awesome.
That's where I'm going.
I got to check that one out. Okay, so where we currently stand, the last show, vibes were way higher than they are right now. We were celebrating the Mets going 7-3 on their West Coast road trip. And since then, things obviously have kind of hit a downward spiral, so to speak. The Mets had a series against the Nationals, Braves, and Tigers, and Rockies, going 3-9 in that span. Danny, let's start with you. Which series surprised you the most?
I'm tempted to say the Tigers series, but really it was the Rockies. The Tigers sweep was tough. They kind of had game one. Marte misplayed that fly ball. You had Ottavino kind of caving in the eighth. But I expected them to come out and really take care of the Rockies. If not sweep them, at least win the series. So that one surprised me the most, coming off the really tough Tiger series. The offense looked anemic in 2 of the 3 games, which it's looked pretty much for the past 2 weeks, save for a couple of games there. So that's definitely the one that surprised me the most.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like the Tigers were a little bit better than people gave them credit for. So I did think that the Rockies surprised me the most. I'm looking at, like Sentinella, you're looking at some of these pitchers that they're going up against. They've struggled a little bit this year. And they have the second worst ERA in the National League, and the Mets just weren't able to do anything for the first 2 games. And then that third game, it was just a little bit of a collapse. And to watch it and to see how they lost these games, they were 100% winnable, and they just weren't able to pull them out.
Yeah, collapse is the perfect word for that third game. Laura, was there anything that you took away from, since the Mets' last off day, that's something positive that's happened?
I do like that, Buck Showalter is more open now to moving around the lineup. You saw, he left Starling Marte out of the lineup yesterday, moving Brett Baty up. I think that's a really good sign. I feel more and more that the responsibility that they give Baty is well deserved. Pete Alonso needs that protection in the lineup. So I think that this is trending in the right direction. And obviously, Kodai Senga, he just looked a lot better than he did in his previous start.
Yeah. Danny, how about you?
The return of Verlander obviously was huge. He came out, gave a couple of home runs early, and coming off the Scherzer start, people were really worried, but he looked fine. He looked like Verlander. So that was a big one. And then the performance of Baty and the performance of Alvarez. They've been great, and looks like the Mets are finally taking the reins off Alvarez, which is really nice to see. So those would be the main things.
Yeah. All right. So we talked a little bit of positives, but Mets fans everywhere are wondering right now, should we hit the panic button? I don't think anyone expected for the season to look how it does right now. We're going to be 1 game under 500. Danny, do you think we should panic yet?
I wouldn't hit the panic button. I would be concerned. I still think they're really just way too good to be this bad. And the last 14 games, they've been borderline unwatchable. So panic, no. Concern, yes. There's just too many unproductive hitters right now on the team. Bottom of the lineup is being dragged down. But again, I know it looks bad right now, but I think they're just a one run away from kind of changing the narrative here.
What about you, Laura?
Atlanta being 7 games ahead isn't ideal, but it's May. There's so much that can happen. They just got Verlander back. So now you're in a situation where if Scherzer is a little bit more like Scherzer, you have Scherzer and Verlander really, again, in that rotation one more time. I do feel like the bats will heat up. And I like the fact that, Mauricio and Vientos down in AAA, those are reserves that if Billy Eppler decides to bring them up, that could really bring a boost into this lineup. There's just so much season left.
Yeah, I think everyone's hoping that, this is just a case of time being on the Mets side and that it being so early in the year, they can kind of get through the bumps. Let's talk about pocket aces. Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander finally made back-to-back starts. This is something that Mets fans have been waiting for all season. First with Scherzer, Danny, you wrote an article on SNY.TV titled, "It's Time for the Mets to Start Worrying About Max Scherzer." I need you to elaborate on that article.
Sure. I mean, I wasn't really worried about him after his first few starts. His fastball velocity was right around where it was last year. He was showing flashes of dominance. He didn't look like the guy he looked like in 2022, but he didn't appear out of sorts. His start against the Tigers was different. It was alarming. The lack of command, the hard contact allowed, looking mostly uncompetitive in that start. And his walk rate overall is around 4, way up. His strikeout rate is under 8, which is not normal for him. It really just hasn't come easily. I think he'll turn it around soon and look like himself again. He had the lowest ERA of his career last year, so this is not a guy who appeared to be in any kind of decline, obviously. But the longer he goes without snapping out of it, the more the concern level is going to rise.
Yeah, so Laura, what are you looking for from Scherzer tomorrow against the Reds to make you feel a little better about him?
I'm looking at that fastball. He had that long layoff because of the suspension, so I expected him to have a little bit more pop in that fastball, and he was still hovering around the 94 mile per hour, which is where he's been in his career. The thing is, hitters are getting to that high fastball that he used to be able to just blow people away with. 94 miles an hour, it's harder to pitch with that velocity now than it was 7 years ago, 8 years ago. So in terms of adaptation, we're going to want to see what he does with his secondary pitches and also establishing that fastball and being able to use it against hitters.
Yeah. Okay, now to Verlander. After giving up 2 back-to-back home runs, had a solid out against Detroit despite the loss. Laura, what impressed you from Justin in his Mets debut?
I think the thing that impressed me the most was the fact that he was able to bounce back from that first inning. A lot of hard contact. Tigers had a lot of hard contact. And the other thing that I really struck me, especially for someone his age, was that his velocity actually got higher. He was throwing harder as the game was going. So that just tells me that he's feeling good physically. It's a good sign for me. I feel like this is the guy the Mets wanted.
Yeah,
for sure. Danny, what about Verlander makes him so dominant?
It's everything, really. I mean, his stuff, including a fastball that, like Laura alluded to, he hit 97 in his last inning. The fastest pitch he threw was in the final inning of his game. So he still has that velo when he needs it. His ability to provide length, which he didn't do in his first game because he was on a pitch limit. But I think he'll offer a lot of length, which the rotation has not been able to provide so far. His drive and hunger, which is similar to Scherzer's. I know there were some who were worried about his age when the Mets signed him. But he's coming off a Cy Young in his age 39 season. First year back from Tommy John. There's no reason to really worry about him, I don't think. I think he's really going to stabilize the rotation.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's talk Kodai Senga. He had his first scoreless outing of his Mets career, going 6 innings against the Rockies while only allowing 2 hits and striking out 4. On the flip side, though, he has walked more than 3 in each of his 6 outings this year, walking 4 in each of the last 4. Danny, does the walk rate concern you?
It does, but really only a little bit. He's getting acclimated to a new league, a new baseball, a new schedule, a new country. There's a lot of stuff that he's dealing with right now, and he's been really, really good. The command of his ghost fork was better in his last start. He's missing a ton of bats. He's limiting hard contact. And I think the improved command will come as he continues to get acclimated. So I'm not very worried about Kodai Senga.
Yeah, and sticking with command, Laura, what can he do to be more in command?
I think being able to establish that ghost fork for a strike, he throws it low in the zone and it kind of like floats away. But when hitters can cheat and say, okay, there's no way that this is going to touch the strike zone, then they're not going to be tempted to swing at it. So if he establishes that strike zone early, at least the ability to nick it on the lower part of the plate, I think that could help a lot.
Yeah, and so Laura, has he met your expectations so far this year? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's still so early. I thought there were going to be some growing pains. I think that's to be expected. It's like Danny said, it's a new league, it's a new ball, it's a new country. These are a lot of things that ball players are human. It's going to take some time. And I really enjoyed not this start, but the one previous to that. He didn't have his best stuff at all, but he was a gamer. He was able to fight through, and that's what I definitely want to see out of somebody like him.
Yeah. What do you think, Danny? How has he met your expectations?
He's been great, I think. I mean, he's shown flashes of dominance. He's taken the ball every turn. They expected him to be their 3, and with Scherzer struggling and being suspended and being pushed back, with Verlander out, he's really been their most reliable guy, and I think he's done everything they could have hoped for. Obviously, the hope is that he turns into an ace, but for what he's had to deal with so far, I think he's been great.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. Okay, we just want to remind everyone to put in some fan questions so we can answer them for you live. Danny and Laura can get to those for you. Okay, we asked everyone on the show to tell us the best meme that they've seen on Mets Twitter so far this year. Laura, we'll start with you. Have you seen a really great
sorry.
meme?
I was looking at it. I guess I just don't pay attention to enough memes, so I don't have an answer, and I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. Danny, do you have one?
I do. It's something that I can't say fully, but it involves Buck Showalter, a famous Michael Jordan quote from back in the day, and Showalter's initial seeming reluctance to play the young guys, which he's since come around on. Again, I can't say it. People probably know what it is, but that's the meme.
All the clues. We'll use context clues for that one, Danny. I did see one the other day, and speaking of trying to stay positive amongst everything going on, someone put together like a graphic of a bunch of pictures of Brett Baty and called it the Baty Bunch. And it's just a bunch of pictures of him smiling, just like batting. It just makes you feel good, I guess. Okay, I think that we do have a fan question. It's coming from Polk Nation on Twitter. And they say, give me a good reason why I shouldn't panic about this pitching staff. Danny, let's start with you on that one.
I think they've just not been the staff we expected them to be in terms of health. Verlander missing the first month was huge. Scherzer not being Scherzer has obviously been an issue. Carrasco's been out. I think it just comes down to health and performance. I thought they could have added one more high-end guy, maybe not signed Quintana and gone a little bit more upside this offseason. But again, Verlander is going to be Verlander, I think. Scherzer might not be the guy he was last year, but I think he's going to be good. Senga has been fine. Obviously, the issue's been not having those guys. So mainly Verlander and Scherzer not being himself. So I think they're gonna come around.
Yeah. How about you, Laura?
Yeah, I agree. And also the idea that you're going to get Quintana back, and hopefully that's going to be something that will shore up the rotation. I do think they probably need some more help in the bullpen during the trade deadline. You should panic a little bit. I mean, I do want to see something. I do want to see that pop from Scherzer, because if I'm not seeing that in this next start, then I'm going to start to worry.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go into a small sample size. So far this season, Francisco Lindor has put up quite interesting numbers. Listen to this. While he's batting at .217, he has 17 doubles, 5 homers, 25 RBI. Is this something to be concerned about, Laura? Let's start with you.
I don't necessarily think so. I think he's going to regress to the mean in terms of his batting average. I was just looking at some of his peripheral stats. He's barreling the ball. His hard hit rate is up. He's making really solid contact. When I see that, that indicates to me that, the hits will come. It'll get there. Just give him some time.
Okay. Danny?
I mean, I'll echo what Laura said. I'm not too concerned. I mean, he's been an above average performer. His OPS plus is 106. He's slugging 426. You'd like to see that be a little bit higher, but he's been fine. And I looked up his numbers, his pace. He's on pace to finish the year with 23 homers, 56 doubles, 116 RBIs, 102 runs scored. That's a star player. I know a lot of people look at his contract. They expect him to hit 300 with a 400 on base and a 500 slugging. That's not who he is. But I think the focus on average is a bit too much. And people should probably open their minds just a little bit to what matters in baseball in 2023. And that's on base, slugging, a lot more than batting average.
Thanks for keeping us optimistic, Danny. Appreciate it.
I'm trying. I'm going out of my lane here to be the optimistic guy. I'm usually just really rational, but I feel like they're going to turn it around here. So I'm trying to keep the mood up.
Okay. All right. It's time for one word and why. Speaking of the lineup, the Mets lineup has had its fair share of struggles over the last couple of weeks. Prior to Sunday, the team had scored 4 runs in their previous 4 games. To break down the lineup a little further, we're going to give one word and why for the following guys. We'll start with Brandon Nimmo. Laura.
Strikeouts. He's been striking out a lot more, and that's just not who he is. He's the guy that gets on base, and when he's not setting the table, the Mets suffer.
Okay. Brandon Nimmo, Danny.
I have dynamic for him. He has been striking out more, especially recently, but he's got a mix of on-base ability and elite center field defense that you just really don't find.
Okay. Starling Marte. Laura.
I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know what's going on. But the one thing Buck Showalter did kind of allude to is confidence. You get into that sort of mental funk where you kind of like it builds on itself and it builds on itself and it builds on itself. We saw him in a big situation 2 games ago where he decided to sacrifice bunt, and Starling Marte of last year would have gone and he would have swung away. So maybe right now he's not feeling quite as confident in his at bats.
Yeah, Starling Marte, Danny.
Off is my word for him. He just hasn't looked right all season at the plate, in the outfield. He's coming off double groin surgery, so maybe it's that. He dealt with some neck issues. Maybe part of it is that. He was one of the most important cogs in their lineup last year, to the point where they lost him late in the season. I think if they didn't lose him, they hang on, win the division, and maybe they go on a run. So I really don't have much reason right now for optimism when it comes to Marte. He really just hasn't looked like himself. Hopefully that changes.
Yeah, it seems just really uncharacteristic from him. Daniel Vogelback.
Limited. I know I've had a lot of back and forth on Twitter with some people about this. I think Daniel Vogelback is a fine hitter. He's an elite on-base guy. I thought about going with passive here, but he's started to get a little less passive the last couple of days, so I went with limited. The main issue to me is that he has great on-base ability, but it's less valuable since he's a station-to-station guy. He's hit for little power. He really can't play the field. He can't hit lefties. I think he's miscast as the regular DH, and that's why I've gone with limited.
Okay. How about you, Laura?
Yeah, I kind of had the same feeling, but even just going back, I'm going to go with that a little aggression or lack thereof. He does have that power. I would like to see him be able to swing the bat a little bit more, and I do feel there were times that he was passive at the plate.
Okay, Pete Alonso, Danny.
I went with powerful, which is obvious. Pete's a talented hitter. He can shorten up, go the other way. But when I think of Pete, I know he's not just a masher, but I think of that thunder in his bat.
Laura?
For me, it's protection. I wish he had more protection in the lineup. I wish pitchers were in a situation where they absolutely have to pitch to him because he does have that power and he does have that game-changing ability. Yeah,
protection is huge. Okay, last one, Jeff McNeil, Laura.
Oh man, I think he's just a great. I was at a sports bar yesterday, and there was these 2 elder guys, and they're like, "That's a ball player right there. That's a ball player." So he's a ball player. I really do think his ability to just produce, to get on base, to choke up on the bat, do what he has to do. That's just a big boon to the lineup.
Yeah, Danny.
In that same vein, I went with intense. He's always going 100 miles per hour, whether he's at the plate, in the field. His drive is off the charts. And there was something funny over the weekend where he argued with a call. Again, another word I can't use, but McNeil is intense. He's always 100 miles an hour, and he helps his club go.
Yeah. Okay. We have another fan question from Jonathan Seaback from Twitter, and he's asking: the Mets clearly need another power hitter in the lineup. So who should they target before the deadline this summer? Laura, let's start with you.
I mean, I honestly don't know. You just need somebody who could get on base. You need somebody who can hit for power. But frankly, I look at that and I'm like, just bring up Mark Vientos. Like, give him a shot. I think he could really. I think he could really boost this lineup. You already have something in house. Go that route.
How about you, Danny?
I think it might be too early. I mean, if I'm looking at possible targets, I'm probably looking toward the White Sox because they're just such an absolute mess right now. But like Laura said, I mean, if you want power, you can try Vientos. And you could even try Mauricio down the line. But right now, I think they're kind of stuck with what they've got.
Okay. Sticking with the lineup, if you were to be manager for a day, what lineup would you send out and why? Danny, let's start with you.
All right. I've got Nimmo, center field, leading off. I have McNeil sliding up to second. I've got Lindor third at shortstop. I've got Pete at first. I've got Baty at third. I've got Marte down to sixth. And I've got Alvarez sliding up to 7. 8 and 9 depends on whether it's a righty or lefty on the mound. Against lefties, I'm going to DH Escobar. I'm going to play Count in the outfield. Against righties, I'm going to DH Vogelback. I'm going to play Pham in left. And they'd be hitting 8th and 9th respectively.
Okay.
Wow, that is remarkably similar to what I got, except I would probably move Hannah up right behind Baty. So,
love that. On the same page here. Okay, what do you think needs to happen to get this lineup going again? Moving Baty up yesterday seemed to work, just like you mentioned, Laura. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I do like a Jeff McNeil higher up in the lineup just because of his ability to get on base. I think setting the table for Pete would be great. You want to see maybe Francisco get on base a little bit more, but I think that'll happen. And I like Baty up higher in the lineup.
Okay. How about you, Jenny?
I think Marte needs to start hitting, and if he does that, the whole dynamic changes. Lindor and Alonso, they have to heat up, and the Mets have to base their playing time on performance. I'm not saying they should bench Vogelback. He's been getting on base a lot. I'm not saying it's time to give up on Pham. He's had some flashes, but they've got to be a little less patient, I think, when it comes to shaking things up, if they have to.
Yeah, that's valid. Okay, let's keep it here with Brett Baty and Francisco Alvarez. They've been up with the big league club for quite some time now, and they're making their impact shown. During this rough stretch between April 25th to now, Baty has batted .314 with a .956 OPS, 3 doubles, 2 home runs, and obviously not to bring up a sore subject, but Carlos Correa is only hitting a .178 with a .741 OPS in the same period. Danny, what has impressed you most by Brett in his short time in the big leagues?
It's mainly been his approach. I mean, he's been calm. He's been hitting the ball to all fields. He's been hitting it with authority, and he looks like the complete package. So he's pretty much what I expected. I'm glad they didn't wait long to call him up because he's really been one of the guys who's helped keep things going and hold this lineup together.
Yeah. How about you, Laura?
I mean, yeah, his maturity. I mean, imagine being in his situation where, you don't make the opening day roster, but you get called up in this situation. He's finding his pitches. He's hitting them with authority. He doesn't press at the plate. If I were in his shoes, I'd be terrified. I'm like, this is my chance. This is my chance to make a splash. But he just doesn't have any of that. There's a certain calm to him as a hitter, which has really impressed me.
Yeah, just not intimidated at all, which is great to see. Okay, yes or no, have the Mets found their third baseman for the next decade? Danny?
I think they have, and I was of that opinion before he even came up. It's pretty clear to me they've got their third baseman of the future, which makes things interesting because Mauricio can't play short. I know he'd rather play third. Seems like that's locked up, so maybe outfield is in Mauricio's future because of Baty at third.
How about you, Laura? Do you think they found their third baseman for the next 10 years?
Yeah, with the approach that he's taken, I feel like he's just going to get better, and he's pretty stinking good right now. So yeah, I do think they found their third baseman for the immediate future.
Okay, let's talk Alvarez. All anyone's talked about was whether his glove was ready for the big leagues. Danny, are you happy to see Francisco finding success in the bigs and being given a shot to shine instead of developing more at the minor league level?
I am. I mean, their hand was kind of forced because of the Narvaez injury. And the first few weeks, I thought it was kind of wild. He was buried on the bench behind Tomas Nido. And I don't think it's a coincidence that with consistent playing time, his at-bats are getting a lot better. He's hitting the ball harder. His defense has been so good, it's been an afterthought. His framing has been great. He's been blocking the ball well. He's been handling the staff well. And I think it's very rare for a 21-year-old to accomplish what he's done in the majors. And he should be getting a ton of credit for it.
Yeah. Laura, do you see Alvarez sticking around once Narvaez is healthy again?
I think, if he keeps maturing the way he is, you really don't have a choice. You're looking at this guy and the pop that he brings. Some of the pitches that he's hit, I'm like, oh, he should have gotten beat on that. But his bat speed is just incredible. His power is great. I have been extremely impressed with his framing. So much of the stuff that we hear about the minor leaguers, it comes second hand, third hand. So you're really not sure until you see it with your own eyes. I'm like, this guy can frame just fine. So yeah, and he's teachable. That's one thing that Showalter has said over and over again is that he's like coachable like you would not believe. So you want to see that from a 21-year-old, and I do think that he has to stick around.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Speaking of minor leaguers, Henry Pinheiro from Facebook asks, who on the roster is a step away from getting demoted for either Vientos or Ronnie? Danny?
It's tough. I mean, I don't think it's going to be Pham. I think it actually might be Guillorme, considering how he's looked. If they were to call Mauricio up, I think Guillorme is the guy that might get sent down. They could also just send down one of the pitchers and go short in the bullpen. But yeah, I would probably say it's Guillorme right now.
Okay. Who do you think?
I could see them going short in the bullpen just because, some of the guys there, they have plenty of options, so they could go that route. With Guillorme, I've just been surprised with him this year because while you sometimes expected him to struggle a little bit with the bat, his fielding hasn't been quite to the level that we've seen in the past. So I think that might be a risk there.
Okay. Let's talk a little NFL, MLB. Aaron Rodgers has said that the Mets have reached out to him about throwing out the first pitch at a game this season. Who do you think should catch the ball, Laura?
Let's go Justin Verlander because, I don't know, Aaron Rodgers dated a celebrity. He's married to Kate Upton. They kind of look alike. Let's do it.
They do kind of look alike. Wow, I never thought about that. Danny?
I was initially going to say Edwin Diaz because he's not on crutches anymore. But I'm a little bit concerned about the pitch sailing wide. Diaz kind of reaching for it. If there's no concern about injury, I let Edwin take it. If not, let Alvarez catch it. No need to overthink it.
Okay. Speaking of Edwin Diaz, in case you missed it, just this morning he posted a video on Instagram of himself on a bike in the gym, which seems like it's a good sign in his rehab, which is great news. Trying to keep things positive here. That's a good positive sign for Edwin Diaz. Okay. Now, speaking of the bullpen, who do you have the most faith in right now? Laura, we'll start with you.
It's David Peterson. I'm sorry, not David Peterson. David Robertson. My God, no. David Robertson. He's such a veteran, and his ability to get players out, even after all these years, is just good. His ability to slot into the situation that would have been otherwise really difficult for the Mets to adapt to has been, it's been great. It's been a gift for Buck Showalter and the rest of the bullpen.
Yeah. How about you, Danny?
For me, it's Robertson and Drew Smith, and behind those guys would be Ottavino. He's had some struggles. He's not great against lefties, so Robertson and Smith for me. And Robertson has been fantastic, utterly dominant, but I think the loss of Diaz is causing a ripple effect that can't be offset by his dominance because you just have one fewer guy to pitch in the high leverage spots. So Robertson and Smith, but they can definitely use somebody else to step up here.
Yeah, for sure. Who has made you yell at your TV, Danny?
The starting pitchers. It's not really on the bullpen. They've put the pen in a really tough spot. It's led to guys who probably should be in mop-up roles or in the minors, not only pitching in the pen, but pitching in high leverage spots. And we saw that yesterday. Yacobonis has done an admirable job. Hunter's been, a guy who's kind of been plugged in here and there. But the starting pitchers need to go deeper or else it's going to keep happening.
Yeah. Laura?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not the screaming at the TV type of person because, but I do feel like, we just need more consistency. We need to see more consistency as viewers in the starting rotation.
Yeah, that's huge. That's exactly why I've been yelling at my TV. Okay, we have another fan question from Luz Arvello from YouTube. He says, hi, or she says, hi, is Quintana close to coming back? Start with you, Danny.
He's not close. He's throwing. Which is a good sign. I still think it looks like the second half of the season for him, but he appears to be in a good spot, but he's a ways away.
Laura?
Yeah, I think the Mets are hoping best case scenario for a late July kind of return. It's still very early in his rehab process, so it's going to be a while.
Yeah. Okay. Let's look ahead. The Mets have a 3-game set against the Reds in Cincinnati, followed by a 4-day set against the Nationals. Who is your X factor for this stretch? Laura, we'll start with you.
Max Scherzer, I do want to see, if we can see the Max Scherzer that we know, that's going to be a big deal. And I also, I think you want to see Nimmo get hot again. When he's getting on base, the entire team's better.
Yeah. Who's your X factor, Danny?
I'll go with Marte. He's been getting days off here and there now. We've talked about this a bunch already. I just think that as the lineup goes, obviously Nimmo's a big guy in there, and he kind of helps them motor. But if Marte could just not be the guy he was last year, but at least just be an above-average performer, he would change the whole look of that lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we have one more fan question from NeuroDoc18 from Twitter. Do you think Billy Eppler is capable of fixing this? Danny?
I think he is. I think he didn't do enough last year at the trade deadline. There wasn't a ton out there, so I can't kill him for it. They had a big offseason, but I thought all along they needed more offense. So they're kind of paying for it right now. I think he can fix it. I know there's people out there worried that if the Mets make a trade, they're going to have to trade Alvarez or Baty. They're not going to trade those guys for a rental. So the Mets have the prospects necessary, non-Baty Alvarez variety to fix this, but they're not going to be able to do it now because they get robbed. So yes, but not until July.
Okay. How about you, Laura?
Yeah, I don't really think the Mets are that far off from being a successful team. I think they have a lot of the same good pieces that made them win 101 games. So I do want to see Billy Eppler be a little bit more aggressive at the trade deadline than he was last year. I know they're trying to hold on to their top prospects, which they absolutely should do. But at this point, a year removed, the farm system is developed enough where they have the pieces to make a significant move.
Okay, closing thoughts from the both of you. How are you spending your off day? Let's try to end this on a high note, Danny.
Well, I'll be working. I'll be watching the Knicks hopefully tie the series with Heat. And it's not it's not the most uplifting thing, but I'm going to be thinking about last night's episode of Succession, which is one of the most intense episodes of TV I've ever seen.
No spoilers. I haven't watched it.
I'm not.
I haven't watched either. Yeah.
You guys need to get on that. It's really dangerous. A dangerous game you're playing, not watching that in real time, especially being active on Twitter. But I'll say it was intense, and I'll leave it at that. And watch the show.
Okay. Laura, what are you doing?
I'm a sports reporter. I don't have off days. I'm covering the Yankees, so I'm going to head to the ballpark in a few minutes.
Valid. I am hoping the Knicks get a win tonight, just because I want to see this series go the long haul. I mean, if they lose tonight, that could be something. Could be it. Okay, thank you all so much for tuning in with us on Mets Off Day Live. The next edition is Monday, May 22nd at 12 p.m. Danny,